When we look at a map of the world, we can see a surprising pattern. Many countries that are rich often sit in colder places. These are regions far from the middle of the earth. On the other hand, countries with less money are usually found in warmer parts of the world. These warm areas are sometimes called the tropics. This pattern makes us ask a big question. Can the weather in a country really change how wealthy it is? It might seem strange, but this book will look closely at this idea. We will explore if a country's average temperature can affect its economy and the lives of its people. For a long time, many people did not think about temperature as a reason for wealth or poverty. They looked at other things, like governments or natural resources. But when we see this clear pattern on the world map, it makes us wonder. Could the simple fact of being hot or cold play a big part in a country's money? This is what we will investigate. We will start by looking at this connection more closely. Is it true that cold countries are generally richer than warm ones? If it is true, then we need to understand why. We will explore if there are real reasons for this link, or if it is just a strange coincidence. This is the main question we want to answer in the chapters ahead. 2. The world map of money. When we look at a world map of money, a clear pattern appears. Most countries with a high amount of money, known as high GDP per person, are in colder or temperate parts of the world. On the other hand, countries in warmer, tropical areas often have lower GDP per person. For example, the world's biggest economies, like the United States, China, Japan, Germany, and the United Kingdom, are all in temperate or cold regions. Looking at wealth per person, countries such as Luxembourg, Ireland, and Norway are also in cooler places and have a lot of money. In fact, studies show that out of the top 20 wealthiest countries per person, 14 are outside the tropics. This is a strong sign that colder places often have stronger economies. This pattern is not just seen across the globe, but also within continents. For instance, in South America, countries like Uruguay and Chile, which are further from the equator and colder, have more wealth per person than warmer countries like Colombia and Ecuador. However, it is very important to remember that just because two things happen together, it does not mean one causes the other. This idea is called correlation versus causation. A good example is ice cream sales and drownings. When it is hot, more people buy ice cream. At the same time, more people go swimming and, sadly, more drownings occur. So, ice cream sales and drownings rise together. They correlate. But eating ice cream does not cause people to drown. The real reason for both is the warm summer weather. We must think carefully about the link between temperature and a country's wealth. Does cold weather directly cause wealth, or is there another hidden reason? Scientists have studied economic data from many countries around the world. They compared a country's average temperature to how much money its people have. This study shows a clear, statistically significant link. This means the connection is real and not just by chance. About 9% of a country's wealth, GDP per person, can be linked to its average temperature. To put it simply, for every 1 degree Celsius that the average temperature goes up, the GDP per person tends to fall by about $762. This shows a clear, measurable effect. This means that while many things make a country rich or poor, like its government, natural resources, or political stability, temperature plays a clear and important role. It is not just a coincidence. The data shows a real, strong connection that needs deeper understanding. 3. A look at the past. When we look back at history, we see a very different picture. Long ago, some of the most powerful and rich empires in the world grew in warm regions. For example, ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia were strong because of their agriculture. In these places, the warm weather allowed them to grow crops almost all year. This meant they could produce a lot of food. This large amount of food helped them feed many people, leading to big populations and powerful empires. Other warm regions like Central America and India also saw large civilizations rise this way. For hundreds, even thousands of years, having a warm climate was a big advantage for a country's wealth and power. However, things were different in colder parts of the world. People there faced hard challenges, especially during long, cold winters when no crops could grow. To survive, they had to find new and smart ways to get and keep food. This need forced them to innovate. They developed skills in storing food for many months and planning for the long term. They also learned to save resources and build more complex structures to protect themselves from the harsh weather. This kind of careful planning and resource management, often done at a family or community level, gave them skills that would prove very useful much later. Then, a major change happened in the world. This was the time of industrialization. Machines and factories became very important. Farming also changed a lot. It needed much less work and time. Because of new technologies and better ways to store food, a country's power no longer came from growing crops all year. Trade became easier, and food could be bought from other places. The global economy started to rely more on technology, manufacturing, and new ideas, rather than just on how much food a country could grow. This shift had a huge effect on countries around the world. Research shows that in 1820, countries in warm regions were still quite wealthy. Their gross national product, a measure of economic output, was about 70% of what colder countries had. But as the world moved into the industrial age, this changed quickly. By 1992, the wealth of warm countries had dropped significantly. Their gross national product was only about 25% of that of colder countries. The long-term planning and resourcefulness that people in colder regions learned, out of necessity, helped them succeed in this new global economy built on trade and industry. It is important to remember that these differences in wealth are not because some people are better than others. Instead, they are largely due to the different environments and resources available to people in the past, which shaped their historical development and economic opportunities. 4. The technology problem. Modern economies around the world depend a lot on technology. It is a very important part of a country's wealth. Today, our global economy uses technology, industry, and new ideas more than just how much food a country can grow. This shift has changed which countries become rich. Countries in colder regions developed many advanced farming tools. They needed to find smart ways to grow and store food because of long, cold winters. This strong need led to new technologies that made farming better and crops grow larger. Warmer countries did not need to make these changes as quickly. They could grow food almost all year, so they did not face the same challenges. Because of this, many of the world's top countries for farm technology are now in colder places, like the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada. This advantage helped them feed more people easily. Then they could focus on other fast-growing industries, such as computers and communication technologies. However, this special farm technology is often hard to use in tropical, warm places. What works well for crops in cold weather might not work in hot, wet climates. So, it is not easy to share these farm technologies across different climate zones, making it harder for warmer countries to improve their agriculture. Another big challenge for warmer countries is in healthcare technology. When many people in a country are sick, they cannot work or study well. This slows down the economy. Many diseases that are common in warm countries do not even exist in colder places. Rich countries have large medicine companies. These companies spend a lot of money to invent new drugs. Because of this, most medicines for diseases like malaria are made in cold countries, even though malaria is not a problem there. Sometimes these important medicines are sold at very high prices to the poorer countries that need them. For example, a malaria medicine might cost a small amount in a rich country like the United States. But in some parts of Africa, the same medicine can cost 5 times more. This means warm countries often cannot get enough life-saving drugs. When people and governments spend much time and money just to get medicine, they have less time and money to build businesses and make their country stronger. This shows how a lack of good technology in farming and healthcare can keep warmer countries from becoming wealthier. 5. Sickness and farming. Tropical climates, with their constant warmth, create unique challenges for both human health and farming. In these regions, diseases can spread with alarming ease. Viruses and bacteria thrive throughout the year because there are no freezing temperatures to stop their growth and transmission. This leads to higher rates of sickness among the population, and pathogens can even evolve to become stronger or more resistant to treatments over time. A significant part of this health problem comes from insects, especially mosquitoes, which carry many diseases. In colder parts of the world, winter seasons naturally reduce insect populations, making it harder for diseases like malaria to spread. For example, countries in temperate zones, like the United States in the past, were able to fight malaria effectively because cold periods suppressed mosquito numbers. However, in tropical regions, these insect populations never decline, allowing them to continue spreading illnesses year-round. When a large portion of the population is sick, it directly impacts the country's workforce. Sick people cannot work as effectively or as often, leading to lower overall productivity. This reduction in a healthy, active workforce hinders economic growth. For instance, infant mortality rates in tropical countries are 50% higher, and average life expectancy is approximately 8% lower than in cooler nations. These numbers highlight the profound effect of health on a nation's development. Families also face a heavy financial burden, spending valuable resources on medicines and treatments rather than on education or business opportunities. Farming staple crops like rice, corn, and wheat also becomes more difficult in very warm climates. Surprisingly, despite year-round sunshine, the productivity and yield of these crops are often 50% lower than in temperate zones. Pests are a constant issue. Without cold winters to control their numbers, insects continuously consume entire fields. This often forces farmers to use more pesticides, which are expensive and can harm the environment. The overuse of pesticides, combined with rapid decomposition by insects and microbes in warm soils, makes the land less fertile. Nutrients are not recycled back into the earth effectively, quickly draining the soil of its goodness. When local farms struggle to produce enough food, governments must import more grain, fruits, and vegetables. This constant need for imports is costly and places a significant financial strain on the national economy. This cycle prevents warmer countries from investing in other areas that could boost their wealth, while many temperate countries benefit by selling their surplus food. 6. An unfair history. Temperature is not the only reason some countries are wealthier than others. Human actions, especially past history, have also played a very big role. Many years ago, countries in Europe became very strong. They were lucky to have good natural resources and weather conditions. These things helped them develop new technologies and grow their economies early on. This strength allowed them to travel and take control of many lands around the world. This period is known as colonialism. European powers often went to warm, tropical places. They exploited these lands, taking many valuable resources like minerals, timber, and crops. They also set up governments that served their own needs, not the needs of the local people. These systems were designed to benefit the colonizers, not to build stable or fair societies for the future of these countries. When these European powers finally left, they often did not help the countries they once ruled. They left behind lands that had been stripped of their wealth. The governments they left were often weak and unstable. Sometimes there was no strong leader, which led to many problems and even wars within these newly independent nations. These power vacuums made it nearly impossible for new governments to establish control and focus on economic growth. This created a huge, long-lasting economic disadvantage. It made it very hard for these former colonies to build strong economies and provide for their people. Countries in colder places, which were also sometimes colonized, often had different experiences. Some kept closer ties with European powers, maintaining economic links and support, or they were not exploited in the same severe way. This gave them a significant head start in global trade and development. Also, the presence of many diseases in warm climates, as discussed before, made these tropical territories less attractive for colonizers to hold on to permanently. This meant tropical lands were often let go sooner, but without any plan or help for their future success. So this long history of taking resources and leaving countries in disarray created deep problems. It made it very difficult for many tropical nations to become rich and stable. Even today, many of these nations still feel the effects of this unfair past. This history is a main reason why the economic gap between many warm and cold countries grew so much, adding to the natural challenges of their warm climates. It shows how human decisions, alongside environmental factors, shaped the world's wealth distribution. 7. Countries that are different. We have learned that colder countries are often richer than warm ones, but this is not always true. There are some countries that are different. They show us that other things, like how a country is governed or what natural resources it has, are also very important for its wealth. Let's look at some examples of warm countries that are rich. Singapore is a small island nation close to the equator. It is very hot there, with temperatures usually between 25 and 31 degrees Celsius. Yet, Singapore has one of the highest GDPs per person in the world. It is a major center for trade. Its location between important oceans helps many ships pass through. Also, its government has made smart rules about taxes and trade. This has helped Singapore become a successful, wealthy country despite its warm climate. Another example is Qatar, located in the Middle East. It is very hot in Qatar, often over 30 degrees Celsius every day. Like Singapore, Qatar is very rich. Its wealth comes from huge amounts of oil. They sell this oil all over the world. But this kind of wealth might not last forever. When the oil is gone, these nations might face economic problems, like other warm countries. Now, let's look at cold countries that are not rich. North Korea is a country with a cold climate. Winters there can be very cold, sometimes as low as -26 degrees Celsius. But North Korea is one of the poorest countries. This is because of its government. It is a dictatorship, and the country is closed off from most of the world. This lack of connection and its political system stop its economy from growing. These examples show that temperature is a big part of why some countries are rich and others are poor. But it is not the only reason. A country's leaders, its natural resources, and its policies also play a very important role. 8. What happens next? We have studied why some countries are often poorer than others. It is not a simple answer, but a mix of many important things. Problems with public health, challenges in farming, a lack of modern technology, and the lasting effects of history all play a role. These issues often happen together, making it harder for warm countries to grow their economies. The information we looked at clearly shows that warmer temperatures are often connected to less economic growth. This is very important to understand, especially as our world is getting warmer. Climate change will affect everyone on Earth. However, it will make life much harder for nations that are already struggling economically. Scientists predict that global temperatures will rise by about 1.5 degrees Celsius in the next decade. Remember our earlier findings. Just a 1 degree Celsius increase in average temperature can make a country's money per person fall by around $762. This means that in some parts of the world, people could see their income drop by more than $1,000 per year just because of higher temperatures. This calculation does not even include other problems like more intense storms, floods, or rising sea levels. These natural disasters will add even more costs and pain to communities and national economies. So the connection between a warm climate and lower wealth is clear from the facts. But the complete story is much more complicated, with many different causes and effects. It is vital to think about these challenges as we look to the future. Learning from what we have found can help us create a better, fairer world for everyone. What do you believe is the most important action global leaders should take to help nations facing these temperature-related economic problems?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.